Hello, everyone. How are you doing? And welcome to another episode of the Dr. Will Show. I am your host, Dr. Will, and I am here with Diana. I'm do this Cornejo
Muy bien.
Sanchez.
Bravo.
Well, my wife is Mexican.
There you go. You've been practicing, huh?
I should be fluent by now. We've been married 13 years, almost 13 years. But
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
well, thank you. But we don't practice.
Yeah, I was going to say we could do it in Spanish. We could have this
Yeah.
interview in Spanish now.
No, I'll be terrible. Well, it's funny though, because when her parents came to visit, they speak Spanish at home. So they were watching Spanish language TV. They were
Mhm.
speaking in Spanish. I'm just sitting here going like, do I live here? Like,
Is this my life?
yeah, I'm going to bedroom. Y'all keep watching them telenovelas. I'm be over here
There you
doing
go.
doing my thing, everything.
I love
Uh, so we are here today, people. We're going to be talking about from traditional to digital. And again, you heard me introduce Diana. Diana was on the show earlier with her crew from University of San Diego. So, Diana, for those people, if they did not watch the show, which, come on now, it's the Dr. Will show.
I
Y'all got to watch
know.
the
What are you
show.
doing?
Yeah. If they did watch the show and they may not know who you are, will you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm a professional learning specialist out here in San Diego, California for the University of San Diego's Mobile Technology Learning Center. And our primary role here is we work with districts on systems change. And so we really kind of support them on their pedagogical shift and inputting systems to lead that.
Awesome, awesome. And we are sort of in the process ourselves in doing that. And because we're not trying to do is just, put devices in classes one to one and instruction stays the same and the
Yep.
culture stays the same. All right, so let's start out with expounding on what you mean or what people mean by the mind shift needed from teachers to go from traditional to digital. Uh, what does that mean?
So I think that you brought up an interesting point earlier, and that was just talking about the actual teaching. So it's not necessarily about the shift to the digital environment, but it's about what's going to actually be done with the technology. So how are students going to be utilizing it? What are students going to be creating with the technology? How are they going to be displaying their learning with this device? How are they going to expand their learning? Which means that the teachers are definitely going to have to start designing lessons that allow for those opportunities to students to collaborate with one another online and in face-to-face, but then also to really utilize technology as a creation tool and
Mm.
not just to consume information.
So, what are the factors to consider when making such a mind shift, and why is it so difficult for some teachers?
So last week, I kind of talked a little bit about this at a conference that I attended, and it's about that release of control. Traditionally, teachers have kind of possessed all of that control. So we really need to kind of make that shift in thinking to empower our students, believing in our students that they can learn facilitation of a teacher and not necessarily being held by their hand the entire way, which has been the traditional model where I'm the teacher, I'm going to give you information and you're just going to soak it up. But versus, putting them in situations where they're actually having to learn for themselves through your own facilitation, it's going to get messy, mistakes are going to happen, but how are we fostering that mindset that we can learn from those mistakes in our learning environment? So from the teacher point of view and from the student point of view. So those are some pieces there.
Hmm. Now, it's interesting that you say the control piece, and I hear so many people say, "Oh, teachers need to give control. Teachers need to give up control."
Yeah.
And what some teachers are hearing, and some of the responses, and again, I'm going to disclaimer. I'm not talking about my school, people. I'm
Right.
just disclaimer. But you'll have teachers say, "I got some bad kids, and
Yeah.
I can't, take my foot off the gas. I
Right.
can't. If I don't lead this thing,
Yeah.
this class is going to be off the rails."
Absolutely.
Um, So what do you say to those teachers who say, "Look, I got behavioral problems. I
Yeah.
can't. What you're talking about can't be done."
So I think my biggest thing is lack of engagement. Clearly, we have situations where students definitely act up more so when they're not engaged. If a student is really, really engaged, then they're going to be focused and they're going to be excited about the learning. If they get that energy from their teacher too, then we start reducing some of those behavioral problems. So I think that teachers in those situations kind of need to see models working in their own context from other teachers. So what does that actually look like with our student population? Let me see that live in one of the classrooms from a teacher that I know, who with students that I also know, right? Because they belong to our climate, to our school climate. So I think that's an important piece, is to see it, but then also to really look at the learning experiences that we're designing for students to engage them.
Okay, I like that. I like that. Uh, because as we know, all schools were not created equal.
Right.
So when we talk about the practices that can derail our teachers in making that shift, what are we talking about?
Well, I think one of the biggest factors is just that lack of participation in the vision process. So teachers don't understand purpose. They don't understand why are we moving in this direction, because they weren't involved in that process. So that's one of the ways to derail a teacher. I think another one immediately is weak infrastructures. So if a teacher is motivated and excited and willing to actually try it out, and then all of a sudden the system fails them through network issues, glitches in the device, or they get knocked off the Wi-Fi, or certain websites are blocked, then that immediately is going to turn a teacher away from it. And they're going to lose faith in that process. So I think that that lack of support isn't just technical, but also a lack of support in the learning opportunities that we're providing our teachers. So what can we do to help teachers? How can we expose them to models? How can we help them understand how to manage, devices in the classroom with students working on them?
So my favorite topic, and stuff that you and your crew do very well.
Yes.
Uh, so let's look at professional learning. How does professional learning change in a digital environment? How should those who design and deliver professional development work with teachers during this transition?
Mm-hmm. So I think that professional development teams definitely need to model integration of technology. There's nothing worse than just kind of sitting there and talking at teachers and not really modeling what it is that you want them to get out of and then go lead it in their own classrooms. Teachers want to see the technology being integrated into their own content. So what does this look like in a science class? What does this look like for my remedial English class? For my students developing writing skills and sharing it out and providing feedback for each other. Teachers definitely want opportunities to try it out. Like, how do I log into this system? What are the different structures that I need to put in place when rolling this out with my students? So they need to have an opportunity to kind of play with it in order to figure out what obstacles are my students going to face that I can already kind of troubleshoot right now, and what's this going to look like in my classroom? So I think if we can start incorporating those into professional learning, then that will definitely serve as a support for our teachers.
Okay, all right. So my one-to-one has been going on since August.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been working with teachers. I've had some successes. I've had some moments of growth.
Yeah.
And looking back, after, let's say, the initial implementation, what should professional learning look like? What are some of the pitfalls to avoid?
Mm-hmm. I think that it's definitely thinking about it being personalized. We need to make sure that that's personalized and not just this general session for everyone. Allowing teachers to kind of choose where they are at in sessions, so what session they need at that given point in time. We need to make sure that we are avoiding that we are providing opportunities for teachers to actually use their devices in professional learning, because I've sat in several of them where they haven't had to engage with the device or have even been told, like, please close your computers, put your devices away. So that's not going to be any help. And then avoid these really long trainings where we're just giving information about this tool. Instead, utilize that time to make it specific to the teachers on their content. Allow the teachers opportunities to play with the tool and to develop learning experiences with it. So don't do it in isolation, but instead have them think about that next lesson plan, or to develop or design a unit plan with some of those tools in mind. So what would this actually look like? But then it's also a productive session for the teachers to say, okay, I know how I'm going to use this and I know when I'm going to use it.
So you got things turning.
Good.
Because we're about to do we're planning our second, we our third boot camp for teachers to prepare them for the one-to-one.
Yeah.
And so we've learned from doing things. We're going to do a lot of, as you talk, hands-on, a lot of practice, a lot of learning through Schoology as a learner, as well as having teachers design while doing that training. So that when school starts, the comfort level is there, and they will have hopefully a better picture of
how to use it.
Yes.
Yeah, how to use it and what it will look like, and make their life easier. Like, make it a session where they're putting up their syllabus, they're putting up their, learning objectives they're putting up some different prompts the students can engage in already. And so they have these systems in place and know how to use it. And so providing them those opportunities to build through your guidance is really critical.
Well, the whole thing that we did not want, and I will speak for all of us, was a teacher, walks in school like, hey, first day, and they look over and there's a cart full of Chromebooks,
right?
And it's like, what am I supposed to do with that?
Yes.
We definitely didn't want that, particularly since the students they were getting had already had a year in a one-to-one environment, so they already were used to a certain way of learning. So
absolutely,
we really wanted to prepare them for that. So before we go, I want to talk about leadership, and this is interesting because your partner in crime, Dr. Martin, has talked about leadership. Even earlier, you talked about vision and people being included. And the reason I want to talk about leadership is because what happens a lot of time, and California was well publicized with this and rolling out those iPads.
Right.
But what happens a lot of times in the districts, money comes from a grant, or the state gives them money, or someone says, "Ooh, one-to-one is sexy. I want some of that." Yep. School board gives them some money, bond, whatever have you, and they buy all these devices. And maybe at the district level, they may just say, look, we want kids to be digital. We want them to do this, but no real plan for it.
That's right.
It goes to the school, then the principal does not say, these are the outcomes I want to see. This is how I want the classroom to look differently today than yesterday.
Yep, absolutely.
So knowing that this happens, what are the critical leadership practices that can assist teachers in making a successful transition to digital?
So I think that first part is like you said, is the principal going in or district leadership going in saying, here's what I want to happen. I think they need to engage the stakeholders in that conversations, because teachers know where education currently is and what's possible. And so how are we tapping into their knowledge about to get them to really invest in that process? Like, what is it that you want for your students? What are we preparing our students for? What do we want our students to be able to know and do? So really holding those conversations with the stakeholders, and that includes the teachers, to get them to buy into that process, I think is the first thing you have to do. And I think additionally, what happens is that there is never a real definition of outcomes. So teachers, when we go in and kind of have focus groups with them initially in these stages, they always ask us, like, we just want to know what's expected from us. So what does it mean to be 21st century? What does that look like in the classroom? So we know what that means, but how does that translate into our classroom? When you're walking into our classroom, what is it that you want to see happening? So really defining those shifts. So if you're going to go PBL, what does that exactly mean? What do you want to see happening in the classroom? So I think kind of defining those outcomes through indicators would be really critical. I think the leadership needs to model, tech integration as well. So it's not just a teacher responsibility, but it needs to be acted on by the leadership as well. And lastly, like, just go visit classrooms, go see the struggles that teachers are encountering, go see what their needs are, go talk to the students and find out what their needs are. So I think those supports definitely need to be put in place from leadership roles.
Awesome. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Hey, you're the expert. I'm
not so much.
when I see you and your crew, and then I saw this. I was on YouTube and I saw the video of stuff you're doing and you're working with people. Had the little music and the drama. I was like, these people are about it. So I felt like I'm just a rookie in this game. Like, how dare I call myself a professional development person?
You indeed are. Definitely are.
like woo. How could I get there?
Yes, come on over.
California's expensive.
It is. I know. It's crazy.
Expensive. I can't even explain it. Look, for y'all, if y'all don't watching the show, I know this is all off on a tangent. my wife and I love house hunters.
Oh, I love it too.
Right? So every time it's a California one, you go to laugh. That's what you don't go to watch the houses. You go to laugh because when someone says, "Oh, I have a budget of $1.5 million," and then the person look at you like, "Ooh, that's
See, and we use it for the comical piece too, and we're like, we could own that in that much and that much of land if we only moved to Wisconsin.
Yeah, like, I'm from Mississippi. $1.5 million. That house comes with servants. You know what I'm saying? That's a big. What you can get for that. It's crazy. So I may need to come. I do want to come visit you though, and
come on over.
Shadow and see the work and the work that you're doing. Learn
anytime.
From
Bienvenido,
the
siempre bienvenido.
Awesome, always welcome, people. I know a little something.
Muy bien.
I know a little something, not to get cut somewhere. That's what I'm trying to.
Good. Survival skills.
Yeah, this podcast is just going off the rails now. Again, Dad, thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.
You're welcome, folks. Hey, as always, people, this is going to be on my blog. This is going to be on SoundCloud, and I'm going to tweet it out. So as always, people, be you, edu, peace.
Adios.